Hi, everyone. I'm Alexis Voss, and this is your favorite Black Lobbyist podcast. Okay, so today I want to talk about my time and experience in DC. I went to DC for the Congressional Black Caucus Legislative Conference. And of course, I host it every single year. And I really just want to talk about my experience and the time of me just being there, what I learned, especially now that I'm I'm new in this entrepreneurial space, and I, you know, am no longer in the corporate space, so it just looks a little different for me going to CBC now. And so, yeah, I just want to talk about my experience, talk about what I've learned, the do's, the don'ts, why it's important. And I think also, too, why everybody should know what CBC is and how it's really relevant and important to the culture. So CBC is important because this is the time for Black and brown legislators, lobbyists, congressmen, everybody that's in the government affairs, political policy industry comes together, right? And really talks about what's going on in our country, on the local side, the state side, and the federal side. So you have people from all over the United States, even some global leaders as well, coming to attend the conference. And so it's so important because outside of the fact that the obvious, right? It's everyone in one room. Representation matters. And so when we all come together to talk about policy, to talk about what's going on in our communities, in our worlds, and how we can bridge the gap and bring our minds together, right, of how we can solve these things, how we can bring different perspectives and just, come together. I think the biggest thing is, again, Black people are not a monolith, so we all have a different perspective and a way of how we can bring change to the space. And so I think it's super important that we all get to come together and make sure that we are advocating on behalf of the things that impacts our communities. And so CBC is so important because you see a lot of representation as well. You see a lot of people that come together, and they come together and just, I don't want to say the term, they hobnob. We come together, we hobnob, and it's just one of those things where I think it's just super important. So I'll say, going into DC was mixed for me because I think a lot of people going to DC, especially after, how DC has changed and evolved into, what it is now. I think a lot of people went into DC kind of confused, a little nervous, kind of like, are we going to have any issues with the police or law enforcement? Is there going to be any issues? And honestly, it was normal. It was fine. It wasn't like how it was portrayed in the media at first, and I'm not saying how it was portrayed at first was false. I think it's just, now it's not as heavily militarized like it used to be. And so I met up with some friends, of course, natives that are, lived there practically all their life or for a really long time. And so talking to them, getting their perspective, asking them like, how do they feel with, the military presence and just, the different law enforcement walking around. They act, some of them said like it doesn't bother them. Some said it does kind of bother them. I think it just depends. But overall, it hasn't impacted or affected how, native DMV folks show up in the city. And so I think that's good, to be able to get there and realize it wasn't like the fear mongering hype that we all thought it was going to be. We were thoroughly safe. We were able to enjoy ourselves, and it was a good time. So it was good to kind of go into that and not feel that we can't really do what we need to do, right? Be present, be up there. Because, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of people, specifically Black people from all over the country, all over the world, coming to DC for that week. And so we just didn't know what that was going to look like. And so thankfully, it wasn't the worst case scenario. It wasn't nothing that, freaked us out. But I would definitely say outside of that, going into, that, it was actually it was really good. I got so much out of my time in DC, my time for CBC, because I think for me as a new business owner, being in this space, I'm not attached to a corporate name anymore. I'm not connected to, I feel like I'm just going to be real. I feel like I was hiding behind the corporate name. So it gave me that confidence to be able to be like, yeah, I represent so-and-so. I represent this company or that thing. And so people were like, oh, yeah, sure, great. But when you represent yourself and your business and you have to network and put yourself out there, that's a different level, right? Especially when, your peers and the people that used to know you as the lobbyist for this company or the lobbyist for that company, or that group, you just don't know how people are going to react to it, right? Especially when you tell them well, this is, it's a podcast, right? That's new in our space. We don't there's no podcast for lobbyists. There's no podcast, for a lot of, I don't say a lot of political people, but not in our industry to highlight the work that we do from our perspective, from our lens, right? And so to let people know, I got a lot of positive feedback. I got a lot of positive engagement and response. And they're just like, oh, yeah, that's so dope. We need more of that, out there. And so it really just gave me that, it just furthered that confidence for me to be able to know I can do this, right? Putting yourself out there is scary in any way, right? But to be able to put yourself out there, do it, even when you're scared, even when you have fear. And I know I talked about that in, I believe, episode 3, how to navigate and live with, walk in faith, but also know that you have fear connected to that. And even though we may not want to have fear or want fear to show up, sometimes it just does, even if we don't want it to. And so, again, I have to remember that this is a faith journey. This is a faith walk for me. I'm being obedient to what God has called me to do, even when people are still sending me jobs for corporate jobs, and the temptation is real, y'all, because, being a business owner, again, it's not for the weak. It's not for, those that aren't really strong in their faith, because when the business is slow and the money not coming in, and you can go somewhere to get, the money, it can be a little, disheartening sometimes, and so, or discouraging. And so, again, to be able to get that overwhelming feedback from people, my friends, my peers, my mentors in DC was just super, I'm still trying to find the adjective. I'm just super grateful. I have so much gratitude that sometimes I don't even know how to fully express it. I've been journaling lately, so that's something I've been trying to make sure I kind of get out there, just writing down my thoughts, writing down my experiences, writing down my travels, making sure I keep a diary or a journal of that, just so I can remember, and also just reflect on how far I've come, and that I'm a lot stronger than what I give myself credit for. So I just wanted to kind of share that personal anecdote, just because I think it's real. I went to DC outside of the fear of, oh, well, how's DC going to look? Are we going to, experience any issues, but outside of that, I had to go in there, I print out some business cards. Oh my gosh, I wish I should have brought them so I could show y'all. But I'll post it on my social media, but I passed out a lot of my business cards. I connected with a lot of people on LinkedIn, and I met a lot of different people in different industries as well. That was also up there. A lot of people in the tech industry, a lot of people in the housing industry. So policy, I'm telling y'all, intersects and bleeds its way into every industry, into every I would say, fold. And so it's not just only policy leaders. Like if you're in different industries, fashion industry, tech, especially, housing, all policy impacts and affects all of us in different ways. And so I definitely encourage y'all, if y'all want to network, if you want to connect, CBC is definitely the place to do it. It's a time to do it, because especially with your fellow people, because, we don't always get a lot of those times and opportunities to be able to come together as one, network, meet different people, whether it's apples to apples or it's a direct line. You always can find a connection with somebody, and you'll be surprised when having a conversation with somebody that you will find a connection or the intersection of the two. I connected with a lot of people in tech, and I'm just like, maybe I can go into the tech sector. AI is becoming a thing. So it's like, I definitely love how different people are able to just be there, network and just find commonality between all of the industries. And so it was a really, really dope time. I'm super thankful. I'm super glad I was able to go. It actually worked out affordability wise for me to be able to go. I booked my travel and stuff last minute. But God is so good, y'all. I just wanted to also say that God is so good. God's been so good to me just these past month and a half, honestly. I mean, aside from just a month and a half, but with just a travel that I've been doing, the networking that I've been doing, even when I'm on travel, personal vacation, I met a lady, I think her name is, if I remember her name, Dana. Shout out to her. But she was such a beautiful soul, and I networked with her on the plane ride from from Spain to the States. And so, and I mean, we spoke on the plane for like 4 hours, y'all. Like half the time we should have, on the plane, I was talking to her. We were talking about everything. And so I'm always use this time and opportunity to network, to put yourself out there, even when it's scary, even when you're like, I don't know, people are going to respond to it. So what? Like, not everybody's supposed to understand your goals and your dreams, right? When God gives you something, when God puts it on your heart and places it in your mind, it's not meant for everybody to understand or get it. It's not meant for everybody to always be a part of that as well, but you still have to be obedient and do it. And so the same reminder I'm telling y'all, the same reminder I have to sometimes constantly give myself so I can keep going, just so I don't talk myself out of it. Because again, like even when I can ask God to remove the fear, it still sometimes creeps back in whether I want it to or not. And so I can't allow the fear of something that is non-existent to impact how I move and to disrupt the goal and a dream of mine, right? And so, again, like reiterating, don't allow something that's not real to impact the reality of what you're going through, what you are called to do. I'm glad that I walked in that purpose. I'm glad I didn't allow the fear of, I don't have like money, or, I'm like, my bank is like, I found a way. When there's a will, there's a way. And so I found a way to make it work financially for me to where, because I did say I wouldn't go if it was just going to put me in such a bind. But again, y'all, God is so good. And when you give him your concerns and your worries, and you're just like, hey, I want to do this thing, it's hard to explain, but things align. And so things have aligned. And so that's why I just got to give God the thanks, because he's just so good. He's been so good to me. Even when I feel like I'm uncomfortable financially, I'm more uncomfortable financially than I've been. I ain't been this uncomfortable financially since college, y'all. And that's a different struggle, and everybody expects you to struggle, in college. And I don't want to get too much on a beaten path, but I do want to say this, and maybe God was putting on my heart to say this, but it really, like, this experience, this journey that I'm on is not only just humbling me, but it is removing the pride that I feel like I had attached to the corporate name or to the 9-to-5 check. I always view myself, I'm not that girl, I'm that girl. But like, how was I viewing myself as that girl, right? In the sense of, was it the money? Was it the title? Was it the, I work for this company, I work for that company, and I'm a young this and that. And so it's like, I allowed my ego and pride to be the ruler or to give me that false confidence. And so now that I got to stand on my own 2 feet and my own money and really invest in something that you may not know is going to yield the results, right? You don't know how people are going to react or respond, but it's really one of those situations where I'm so glad I'm on this journey, because it's purging that ugliness that I didn't even realize that was in me, that I was leaning on. And so now this journey is really allowed me to lean fully on God in every way, form possible. Like, down to sometimes I have to lean on God just to be like, help me to just have the strength to just keep going. Have me the strength to just be able to get through this day. You know, like, this is very new for me in the content space. So bringing all of that, you know, into me going into, you know, a conference or an event that I do every single year in a different way, it was nerve-wracking for me. I really went in nervous. But again, y'all, and I'll get off of it. I'll get off my my soapbox, but I really just wanted to say, like, continue to trust in God even when it doesn't make sense, even when you're afraid, even when you are uncomfortable. I promise you, like, even in the uncomfortable, even in the time of worry and doubt and anxiety, God is still going to have you on steady ground. And so, and I don't ever tell you something I have not experienced. I can't sit there and I'm not confidently telling you this because I am unconfident that God is not going to, like, that's the only confidence I have in any of this, is that God told me to do it. So because God told me to do it, it's going to be done. It's going to be done well. I just have to continue to give God my yes. I have to continue walking, even sometimes when I'm walking shakily. I have to continue doing it, even when I may feel like other people may not vibe or like what I'm putting out there. I have to do it because whatever the glory God needs to get out of it, I'm going to just do it. And again, that's not easy. Like, I'm not telling you something that's just like, oh yeah, just have faith and be obedient. No, like, it's hard. But at the end of the day, it's definitely something that, you know, you got to do. And so I'm just, again, I have so much gratitude going into, you know, CBC and just the experience that I had. It was just absolutely amazing. And so I guess, like, a little slight recap, and, you know, I'm going to show you, like, some of the personal videos that I took. Like, y'all, let me just tell y'all, I was outside. I was outside, but not outside like you think. Let me explain. I know a lot of people, they see me go to the events. They're like, oh, well, you're going to brunch and you're going to this party and you're going here and you're going there. It's not, I want to say it's not fun for me. I'm an extrovert, so I do enjoy being very social. I'm a social butterfly. I do have a battery. My battery just looks a little different than everybody else's. But at the end of the day, imagine, like, it's this, external events for me is very similar to, like, you going to your work Christmas party or you going to your work, you know, event. You know, yeah, there's going to be alcohol there. If you drink, you know, enjoy some libations. Yeah, you're going to be socializing and, you know, all the different things. And maybe on a rooftop, it may be a nicer event or whatever the case is. But you can't cut up like how you cut up with your friends. You know, I'm not drinking and dancing and all that kind of stuff like how I would with my friends or family. No, these are still my peers. These are still people I have to work with, right? And at the end of the day, I'm still a Black woman in this space. I can't do and get away with what everybody else does and get away with. And that's just the reality of it. We don't get the luxury. And I'm not going to really argue with no one about that. Black and brown people really don't get the luxury to sit up here and be pissy drunk at a corporate event or at an event, you know, for work. We don't get the opportunity to, you know, be on the center stage twerking and doing a handstand and a drink. We don't get to do that. And because at the end of the day, our reputation is fully on our reputation, our career, everything's on the line when we do that. And so it's not fair, it's not right, but that's just the reality of it. And I think that's just, you know, something that we have to be mindful of. And so, yeah, when I'm going to my external events, When people see lobbyists, they're like, oh, y'all just be drinking and eating and going to this thing. Yeah, it's socially exhausting. It's one event after the other. I think I rarely get to see my hotel room. I mean, imagine you change, you go out for the day, and you might see a hotel room by like 3 in the morning. That like you don't. It's one event after the other. You're just Uber riding to the next thing all day, right? And at each event, you may drink, you may eat something like little light bites, but sometimes you don't really get a chance to have a real full meal. And so it's a lot. By the end of my trip, I was thoroughly exhausted and tired. And so I think it's one of those situations where you have to be mindful when you show up in those spaces. And I'm very mindful when I show up in those spaces. So I say that to say I love what I do. I love the work that I do. I love relationship building. I love going to external events. I love being able to socialize with my peers. I love to be able to talk about the nerdy policy stuff. Like I nerd out about this stuff, right? So I love talking about it, right? Being around the people that I work with. But at the end of the day, it is a level of being on. And when you're on like that, especially for days at a time, it can be very exhausting. And so at the end of the day, just being mindful of, how you show up, how you come across, especially in this political, I feel like strained time, right? I think at the end of the day, we have to I don't want to speak for everybody. Let me speak for myself. I have to be mindful, right, of the emotions that I carry. I have to be mindful of how I carry that when I go into the rooms. I've always told, my mentors always told me, a good lobbyist, you're never supposed to know how they vote. A good lobbyist, you're never supposed to know how they vote. You should always wonder, are they Democrat? Are they Republican? Are they good? And so, because at the end of the day, that's how well we're supposed to be able to maneuver in rooms and spaces. You don't have to always agree and like what everybody has to say, even if they look like you. Just because people are black doesn't always mean that they're this liberal Democrat. It doesn't mean that, right? When you're having conversations with people, be open to a different perspective and what people have to say, because you'll be surprised, right? Everybody has a different lived experience. Everybody was raised differently. Everybody's values and morals are different than yours. Even if you are from the same religion or faith, it doesn't matter. And so, at the end of the day, that's why I feel like it's so important for me being in those spaces, because you get to see all walks of life and you get to come into those spaces, have real thought-led conversations, even if you don't see eye to eye, even if you don't agree, and maybe you all agree and be on the same page, right? But at the end of the day, what world would that look like if everybody agreed, if everybody thought the same? Y'all remember that episode? I don't know how old my audience is, but I'm a millennial. I'm 29 years old. So I used to watch growing up Fairly Odd Parents, and it was this one particular episode. Everybody should know that I used to watch Fairly Odd Parents, where Timmy Turner made a wish. He made a wish to like everybody be the same or something. So literally the whole world turned gray and everybody became like these gray blobs. So there was nothing different. There was no color there. Everybody looked the same. Everybody did the same, right? And it was one of the characters, one of the blobs, was still making fun of, I think Timmy or somebody because of something. And it's like, we all look the same. But at the end of the day, what world would that look like? Right. And I feel like that's where we're kind of transitioning into. And again, I don't want to get too off topic. I feel like I'm just talking, y'all. But I feel like that is so real. We need to be in spaces that challenge our perspective. And again, the challenge doesn't have to be aggressive. I think people, when they hear that word, they think it has to be something where we're having a heated discussion or debate, or it has to be polar opposite of how we think. No, you just may see a different perspective, and I could be like, oh, I never thought of it that way, right? There's always different ways you can look at something. And so there's not always a one-sided, one narrow way of doing something. Because at some point we got to realize that's not even how we got here and get this far to be able to, with the evolution, right? We weren't able to get here technologically. We weren't able to get here, even civil rights, because people was thinking inside the box. You got to think from different perspectives. I would say a good example, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, right? The whole debate was who was right, who was wrong, who was better. It's not. You had two different men of two different walks of life, two different lived experiences, living in the same time, experiencing the same, racism, all the things, but their approaches were different. It didn't mean that one was right, one was wrong. It just means that the approach and perspective was different. And so, but of course, when you bring those two great minds and leaders together, and they finally did eventually, sadly, towards the end of their lives, come together, they realize, oh, we actually have a lot more in common than we do apart. We just got to find ways we got to find those commonalities. And so again, CBC is such a great, it's such a great time because you are able to get these thought leaders in the same room with different perspectives, and we're able to find commonalities of how we can better this space, better this world. Not I'm debating if I want to say this. Depends on how real I want to get, but for Black people, our community, I love our community. I love Black people because we have such a big heart. And I'm not going to argue about that either, but Black people have such a big heart because we always invite other ethnicities, cultures into what we're doing, whether it's their fight, whether it's a civil rights issue, whatever the case is, we are always there. And I'm bringing this up because when we're having these discussions, it's not always about how we can better Black people. It's also about how can we better Black people, brown people, people of color, other people, white people. How are we able to better this world so that we all can live in it equitably and equally with liberties, justice, and freedom for all, right? And I just see how that always bites us in the butt a lot of the times. But I don't blame or shame us for that. I love that, we bring everybody in, or we fight sometimes for other people, but that's a whole other conversation for another day. I just think that, again, attending the conference is just such a blessing to be able to do, because I don't even think a lot of other ethnicities are able to do it on the scale that we do, that I've seen. But I just love that we're able to have the platform. It's grown significantly, and that we're able to still, be able to come together, especially in these political strained times, and find ways that we can just be better, and how we can navigate these spaces in these times where, it seems like there's a target on everybody's back, right? That doesn't fit, the mold or fit the standard as of right now. And honestly, I feel like that standard is moving, but I think, it's great. And so, like I said, I just kind of like recapping all of that representation, right? It was such a time being there, just because to be able to see your people in one space fighting for different similar things, right? Having thought-led conversations, networking, access to networks, access to other industries and people and spaces that you may normally wouldn't even have access to on a normal basis. I think that's so amazing to be in the same be in the same room as someone that you looked up to, or that, you not necessarily idolized, but that you just looked up to. I think it's great having good policy conversations and discussions, and just being able to represent for the culture, to be honest. I think that's just a really dope time and experience. And like I said, I don't really see a lot of other people, other organizations really doing that. And so I think CBCF is definitely doing a great job maintaining and keeping it up, even like I said, in these times. So As we kind of wrap this episode up, I, again, am so grateful to be able to attend an amazing conference every year, see how it grows, see how I'm able to grow with it. And I'm also excited to see how my business is going to grow in the coming years. And so I definitely encourage you to look at your local state and federal, conferences. Like, look at different things that's happening in your industry. I definitely encourage you to be more active in your industry, networking. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the policy space, but I think it really is helpful, especially if you're a young professional. Even if you're, someone who's a little more seasoned in their career, you always can, as the world and time is evolving, you can always learn from other people, from other great minds, whether they look like you or don't look like you. But it's also really good to be able to be in the same room as people that do. And so I really encourage you to get active in your local, in your industry, but also to start to get more active in these policy spaces. So, hopefully this was give you some type of insight and encouragement to be able to look into attending CBC next year. Even if feel like, well, I'm not in the political space, I'm in the policy space, you don't have to be. Like I said, there's other industries that attend CBC all the time, and there's different events that happens all the time. So I definitely encourage you to look into that. I hope this was helpful, and I really invite your feedback. What are some spaces that you want to be more present in? Right? Is it, whether it's in your industry, are you looking at other industries or other career choices or options? Let me know. Please comment, like, subscribe, follow. I want to hear from you. Until next time, bye.